What's up, guys? We're live. Who is in the chat? It's DJ, as always. Nice to see you there, man. There were two people. Probably back down to one. It's all good. I'll just wait for maybe a few more people to jump in. I hope so, because this is not a live commentary. This is just a random stream. Maybe do a couple of gonna do go through the Matrix trailer and just look into that a little bit, because yeah, the Matrix trailer is something else. I don't really know what's going on with that film. I don't know where they're gonna go with this. It just looks a little bit bizarre to me. There's also a Halloween ranking video. Oh, I've got two actually. And I want to go through them because it's Halloween ranking videos from magazines or websites. Excuse me. Sorry, I apologize. Just had a really large pizza. So, yeah, Halloween ranking videos from two websites which really have I'm not saying have no business ranking a Halloween movie, Halloween franchise, but they don't specify, they don't deal in horror films in any shape whatsoever. So, and I don't know the results of these rankings, so it's kind of a case of just like, go on the site and just scroll down and see where they put these films, because I'm curious to see where the normies place a lot of these films, because hardcore fans, and I'm not even a hardcore fan compared to some people. I love the Halloween franchise, but compared to some people are like ultra hardcore fans, and I'd never compare myself to them. But I think my ranking video for the top Halloween movies, like from best to worst, I think that would coincide roughly with like some of the hardcore fans, and I don't know whether some of these normie websites, whether they'd fall in line with that. If they do, I think it's purely by chance, because I don't think they know what they're talking about. So yeah, I've got a couple of those website lists lined up. As I say, the Matrix trailer dropped a couple of weeks ago. It is what it is. It kind of looks like John Wick a little bit. Not literally. But why is Keanu Reeves looking like John Wick? Would it have been too much trouble to just give him a haircut and like maybe shave off his facial hair? Now, I know that Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves. So he doesn't have to have a certain look for every film, but I just think it would have been better for the producers, the director, everyone involved, if they just said, look, just haircut, side parting, just the way. It's not like he's not bald. It's not like he's lost his hair in the last 20 years. He's still got a full head of hair. Just give the guy a side parting, clean cut, the way he was 20 years ago, and let's just give it a bit of continuity, because if John Wick had never happened, I wouldn't have an issue with his look in this film. He's a bit more grizzled looking, a little bit more world weary. But unfortunately for this franchise, we have had John Wick, and for me, I just see the film, I just see John Wick. And because Keanu Reeves isn't a very versatile actor, when he talks or whispers, as he does often, he just sounds like Keanu Reeves, aka John Wick, aka Neo. So it's just always the same. it's John Wick is Neo. Neo is John Wick, and it's I don't really know why they would make this decision, but I don't know. These I don't know if you've seen them or not, but on George's website there are Chucky, Nightmare on Street, and Access t-shirts. Well, I definitely invested in a Nightmare on Elm Street t-shirt. Not Exorcist t-shirts. That seems a little bit random for Asda. For anyone not in the UK, Asda used to be owned by Walmart, so everybody knows who Walmart are. But Exorcist almost seems a little bit too edgy for Asda. But if that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. But yeah, I'd definitely look at getting a Nightmare on Elm Street t-shirt. Chucky, no, don't mind. I mean, I like Child's Play. Child's Play 2 is decent. The rest of the franchise, no, not interested. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, even though I'm not a big fan of anything after Part 3, you know, he's still an iconic character. But I mean, I saw that Christian did a Nightmare on Elm Street ranking video, which I've not watched yet. I've not watched his Friday the 13th ranking video. Was it Halloween? Was it Halloween and Friday? Can't remember. But Griffin, what's up, man? Good to see you on board. I saw your tweet, or I replied to your tweet about Silent Hill. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it was a thing in America, but definitely in the UK. I think people were like, there was a bit of a rivalry between Silent Hill and Resident Evil. They came out, Resident Evil definitely came out first. I know that, I remember that much. But I mean, Silent Hill, when that came out, there was people on the side of Silent Hill, and then there was people on the side of Resident Evil. And it just reminded me of the Street Fighter Mortal Kombat rivalry in the early 90s. Which I was a Street Fighter guy more than a Mortal Kombat guy. And yeah, I was more of a Resident Evil guy than I never played Silent Hill, to be honest. I played Resident Evil 1 and 2. Can I just see? Yeah, sure, man. I'll send you the link. Don't worry. Just give me a second. Hang on. I'm still really bad at like doing this. Copy to clipboard. Nearly there. There we go. Jump on, man. Sean's in the chat. What's up, man? Sean, were you a Resident Evil guy, or were you a Silent Hill guy? Or are you old enough to be a Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter guy? There's Griffin. What's up, man? Okay?
All right.
Not bad, man. How's it going?
It's going all right.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Yep. 20th anniversary of Silent Hill 2.
Well, yeah, you talk, man. You I mean, you're passionate about this.
Oh,
you just shoot the shit, man.
Oh, yeah, Silent Hill 2. It's the reason why. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, fine.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Silent Hill 2 is like the reason why I'm even here. Like that game got me into horror. Like I am
horror films, or just the horror games.
Horror films, horror games, horror literature.
Yeah, the whole.
I just became obsessed. I'm like, I gotta know. I gotta find out more. Because I had seen, I'd seen Carrie. I'd seen the original Halloween when I was a kid. And Carrie's a film I didn't, I didn't dislike it, but it definitely freaked me out. But like, I just didn't see it because I'll admit, like, when I was younger, I was definitely afraid of horror films. Like, They freaked me the hell out. But then I played
Yeah.
Silent Hill 2, and that's what helped me go from being freaked out by horror to just being absolutely fascinated by the genre.
So, in terms of, I mean, how old are you, Griffin? If you don't
31.
mind me asking. 31.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you were born in 90?
Yep.
Yeah. So you kind of came along just at the, I suppose, in terms of really getting seriously into gaming, you probably came around at the birth of the PS2.
Birth of PS1. Birth of PS1.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, when I say in terms of like maybe being able to like really sort of maybe go out and start like having a say in what you're gonna, because when the PS2 came out, it was like 2001, so you would have been a little bit older and maybe going to your parents and saying, "This is what I want to play. I've got a little bit more, maybe spending money." You know what I mean? So it's like, but as the PS is Silent Hill 2. So Silent Hill 2 is a PS1 game.
PS2.
Oh, it's PS2. Okay. See, I'm not up to speed so much with the Silent Hill franchise. I'm more, I say, I was more of a Resident Evil guy. So I was kind of, when Resident Evil dropped on the PS1 with that, the opening intro with the sort of how would you describe it? That it's kind of was it live? I don't know what. There's a word to describe that opening to Resident Evil 1.
Oh,
on the PS1.
Kind
There's
of
a word.
footage. Kind of.
Yeah, but it was But everybody said that they look like melted candles.
Well, it was like black and white footage.
Yeah, it was really off. It looked a bit strange, but at the time, it was kind of like seen as highly sophisticated. But
I don't know. We get pissed off. I start quoting Resident Evil, the first one.
Yeah,
I could do it. No, don't go.
I mean,
helicopter flies off.
Yeah, I mean, there's YouTube videos with the quotes from the characters.
Oh, they're
just like Wesker, Albert Wesker, and a few of the others.
You guys,
how cheesy it sounds, but
yeah, like stop it, don't go out that door.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best, but it's for like the late 90s. It's as good as you're gonna get.
Hey, like the blood and gore in the original Resident Evil. Did they censor that in Europe? Did they censor that?
I don't think so. Not in England. Maybe
like you could shoot the zombies' heads off.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They might have censored it in maybe other countries in Europe, but not in Britain.
Yeah.
But maybe in Germany or France, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, because that was the most satisfying thing, was to pop a zombie's head off with a shotgun.
Yeah.
That was so satisfying. Did you ever play the remake of the original game?
Of Resident Evil?
Mm-hmm.
No. Was that Xbox One?
That was it was re-released. It originally came on the GameCube.
Right, yeah. Okay, no. My gaming kind of went PS1, very briefly PS2, and I quickly switched to the Xbox. Then Xbox 360, then Xbox One. But after
Xbox 360 games,
I did play some, but by the point, I think I talked about this the other day. By the time the Xbox 360, my son was just getting towards, the time when it's very difficult to do anything. Mm-hmm. He was like 2, 3, 4 years old, and it's just your time's taken up just dealing with them. So by that point, I had very little time to play games, and it was only when he got a bit older that I went towards Xbox One and really started playing games again. So Xbox 360 was kind of like a time when I wasn't playing much at all. I was playing FIFA, which is like the football game.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I played.
Oh,
because
you didn't really play any of the horror games for 360?
No, it was more playing the sports games because it didn't require any time. You just jump online, play a match, and then jump off. Was anything that involved any sort of getting involved deep into a game, there was just no time to do that. So I was not really doing anything like that at the time. It was maybe more when they got when they got the Xbox One, which is my son's. It's not mine. I bought it for my son, but I did jump on and play some games on the Xbox One. But my time mainly in terms of consoles is the late 90s, early noughties,
Yeah.
and definitely in terms of the early 90s, Super Nintendo.
But you never played the original Silent Hill?
No, I didn't play any Silent Hill game. I've never played Silent Hill. No, because I think Silent Hill exclusive to PlayStation.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think by the point that Silent Hill become like a big deal, I'd already moved over to Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't have been anything I would have even if it interested me. I wasn't really going to, go and fork out for a PlayStation again to play one game.
Oh, you sell your consoles, you move on.
What it was so I bought the PlayStation 1 and was like, loved the PlayStation 1. Then I bought the PlayStation 2.
Oh yeah, well that plays PlayStation 1 games.
Yeah, but what happened was there's a game in which is going to completely mean nothing to you. There's a game in the UK called Championship Manager, which is basically a soccer. I'll say soccer. So I say football. You say soccer.
No,
it's a football management game.
I'm so cultured.
Yeah, it's a football management game. So there's no action. You just basically control a football team. As if you control a baseball team or an American football team, and you pick the team, set the formation, and see what happens. And it sounds really, really boring, but this is massive in Europe. This game,
yeah.
And what happened was this game wasn't available on the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
So I obsessed over this game on the old Commodore Amigas. If you remember the Commodore Amiga from the 90s. So I obsessed over this game. So when it came to console, I was like, well, I'm prepared to if this is not going to come to PlayStation, I'm just going to sell the PlayStation and buy an Xbox for this one game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. So, yeah. It's one game it's literally one game can make somebody, abandon the system and go to something else.
That's crazy. What else did you play on the original Xbox?
I was massively into San Andreas, which, that's probably a game which I probably put more hours into, apart from the game, just Championship Manager, which I've just mentioned, San Andreas, Knights of the Old Republic, the Star Wars game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, love that game.
That's a great one. That's getting like a remake now.
Yeah, I don't know where they're gonna. Are they gonna go full remake or they're just gonna upgrade or?
So for Knights of the Republic, did you play it through both times as evil and good?
No, it just literally just played it through the once, and it was kind of just. I was never like fully evil or fully good. It was kind of just like I think I ended up slightly evil maybe.
Oh yeah.
But it was never like kind of just like full on evil completely all the time. But
oh yeah, there was actually a glitch in that game. There was a great glitch when you go to Tatooine. You get this little boy. He sneaks onto your ship, and and if you tell him to get off your ship, you would get evil force points. But if you you could actually keep clicking on him and keep telling him to get out, and you just keep accumulating evil force stature, so you could become fully evil and look like a demonic zombie.
Yeah.
Like your eyes are all shrunken in, all of your hair is pretty much gone. It's great.
I think that was Knights of the Old Republic was kind of like the introduction to like really, really, ancient Jedi backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point they'd never really looked. I mean, I don't know whether this was it ever like canon, Knights of the Old Republic? Was it just as I don't think it ever was it? Or
No, not really.
but I think they might have since then maybe because aren't they make as Darth Malik being is it Darth Raven or Darth Malik who's being
It's
classed
both
as
of them.
both of them? So yeah, I thought that was the case. So they've kind of acknowledged that 4,000 years ago there was this Jedi and Sith and
Yeah, the Civil War.
because up and
Civil War.
yeah. So at the points when the games were made outside of what the official Star Wars universe, this was maybe considered not official. But since Disney took over, they've now acknowledged that well we're going to use this
Mm-hmm. Well,
because
it's popular,
a
ultra
lot of
popular.
the because a lot of the extended universe books stuff like Admiral
Yeah, I
Thrawn.
read most of those.
Yeah. Um, because obviously before Disney bought the rights, that was never considered canon, and Disney took on everything, and they're now picking and choosing what they
Oh
regard
yeah.
as. So it's basically, I think that like the sort of cherry picking the best stuff from the extended universe and like taking it and because at the end of the day, the people who wrote I mean, the guy who wrote the Thrawn trilogy, I'm pretty
Timothy
sure,
Zahn.
like, if he owns the rights to that, I'm sure Disney, if they say to him, well, here's,
Well, they
20 mil.
used for the Rebels show. I know they used Thrawn for
Yeah.
that series.
Yeah. I've never seen
I
the
haven't either. I
Rebel
just know
stuff.
they used them.
Yeah. I've kind of checked out on Star Wars a little bit
Yeah, same here.
since the new trilogy's just left me
Cold.
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Cold. You took the word. But the prequels left me cold as well. So,
Yeah, I know, right?
uh, I mean, because I
Uh,
mean, I mean, I'm not that old that the thing is, Star Wars is so old, the film, the
mm-hmm.
New Hope, that even I'm 45, and even it's before my time. This is the film. This is like a film that is some of a time for somebody who's in the 50s. It's such a long time ago. Like
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with in a time after the original trilogy, but before the prequels. So because I was 6 when Return of the Jedi came out, so I was just a little kid. I didn't know anything about Star Wars at that point. So I only got an interest in Star Wars as I
Because of
got
home
older.
video.
Yeah, exactly, from the late 80s into the 90s. And then so by the time Phantom Menace came out, I was 22.
Too old for that shit.
Exactly. So so it's a bit of a funny one because I was too old even in 1999 for the prequels, but I was always too young
Oh
for the
god.
original trilogy. So, but I obviously I took that on board and I loved the original trilogy, but it wasn't something that was forced on me as a kid because my dad, he was too old for Star Wars because by the time Star Wars dropped, he was like in his 30s. So it's not like I had anybody. It's not like I had a father figure who's like, "What's this? What's this, son? This is amazing." He was like, "What's this stupid crap you're watching?"
you
You know what I
know,
mean? He was old school. He's like, "This is
speaking of that,
yeah,
I dragged my dad to the Phantom Menace. I did. I have vivid memories of the morning dragging my dad, and we went And he's given me hell ever since then. He's like, that movie was so annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's always like that kid and Jar Jar and what? He hates it so much. He gives me crap. He's like, man, those Star Wars movies are bad. I'm like,
I
yeah,
mean,
they were.
Do you like Phantom Menace? And
No,
no,
no.
because you would have been probably the target audience from '99.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have been like 9 years old, I'm assuming. I mean,
yeah,
had you seen the original trilogy at that point?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
We actually had them ripped. We didn't have we had bootleg copies. We recorded them off TV. My parents, they recorded movies back then because we were cheap.
yeah.
My family was cheap. They're like, we had the Star Wars movies. We had Beetlejuice taped. We had some Disney stuff taped. It was pretty funny.
DJ Donnelly asks, do you prefer Star Trek or Star Wars?
I prefer Star Trek now. I think there's more good Star Trek films than there are Star Wars films.
Yeah,
I would honestly, I would rather watch Star Trek V: The Final Frontier over The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I was never a massive Star Trek fan. I was more of a Star Trek guy, but Star Wars guy. But I suppose with Star Trek, there's more to choose from with Star Trek now. I suppose
Yeah,
there's so much with Star Trek. I mean, how many you got? The original Next Generation, Deep Star 6, Voyager. You've got Picard now. I mean, there was Generations, is it? I mean, I think Star Trek will go on forever.
probably.
I don't think Star Trek will ever end. I mean, you've got like animated cartoons now. There's just
Oh god.
But I mean, maybe there's almost too much. Too much for me to take on board now.
Yeah.
But I think Star Wars is maybe in danger. I mean, I don't know about your opinion about this, but my opinion of Star Wars is that it's in danger of spreading itself too thinly. That there's just too much going on now. They've been releasing a film pretty much every year. They've got TV shows dropping every 6 months almost.
The TV shows are insane. Like the animated series, they've got like 20 of those.
Yeah. It's almost like since Disney took it on board, when
they're
George
milking
Lucas,
it for what it's worth.
Well, they paid $4 billion.
Yeah, I know.
They've got to get that money back. And George Lucas, for all his faults, it was a special occasion when a Star Wars film. It was when the Star Wars film dropped. It was a special occasion. I remember going to the cinema for Phantom Menace, and when the LucasArts came up on the screen, there was a literal like the audience literally went,
flipped out.
An intake of breath almost from the younger fans and some of the as if to say, oh my god, it's a new Star Wars film, because it had been 16 years.
And then you hear about trade federations and
and
taxation.
And
it's like, what?
Yeah, and then all the kids were like, what? What does this mean? What does this mean, Dad?
What's funny? When my parents, they bought me the Phantom Menace VHS tape, and I would always skip it to the very end when the big battle happened, because I could not give a shit less. Like, I couldn't care less about all the, I never liked the pod race. The beginning of the movie is not that great. In the middle, the whole Tatooine shit is lame. The Coruscant stuff is boring. All the political bullshit. It's just like, I'm here for action, and so I'm watching. I would watch just the ending of the movie when I have VHS. I would literally time it to rewind it to when they get back to Naboo. Yes, I know the planet name.
Jamie's in the chat. Jamie says, I can't pick between Star Trek and Star Wars. It's just too much stress, lol. Well, Jamie's sort of a similar age to me, so she grew up with Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah.
Ben's in the chat. Ben Grimm, Lower Deck is good. I have not seen Lower Deck. That's the animated one.
Yeah. But speaking of PlayStation, I bought my parents. They got me the Phantom Menace video game on the original PlayStation, and that game was wild because when you go like you switch characters, like it's kind of a hybrid. It was a third person action game, but then it would become like kind of a RPG where you can actually you have a dialogue tree. You could actually choose what you say, and you could on the Tatooine part of the game you play as Qui-Gon, and you could be an absolute dick to people. It was so good. You could walk around all around Tatooine in the cities, and there would be these little children. They would run up to you and they would push you, and you can actually kill them. You can actually kill the kids. Like, oh, and you get to go to the Gungan. You got to go to the Gungan city, and there's Gungan children there. You can kill those too.
You can't even kill kids in Grand Theft Auto.
I know, but in freaking Phantom Menace, George Lucas, Mr. Pure, almost puritanical. with his he came out with bullshit statement. Did you play the game Star Wars Dark Forces, the first person shooter?
I've not played that. I played The Force Unleashed and Knights of the Old Republic. That's probably about it when it comes to Star Wars games.
And for Dark Forces, you get to fight the Imperial officers, and you get to fight those Imperial guys with the I think they're called they're not the gunners, but the guys with the black helmets. You remember the guys wearing all black?
Yeah.
Big black helmets.
Are they? Don't he flew the? Are they in Return of the Jedi?
Not. Yeah, they are. They're in. They're on the Death Star.
Are they TIE fighter pilots?
No. I don't know their exact name, but they're some kind of a security guard. Basically, they're like below the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And George Lucas was pissed off that you could shoot those guys, that there were so many of them. He said, I put helmets on the stormtroopers for a reason. It's like, George, you also made those guys with the black helmets.
Yeah. I know.
So yeah, he has he has so many contradictions with the lore.
Did he ever explain why the stormtroopers are so bad inaccurate at shooting as well?
I don't think. No, I don't remember. I don't think so.
That was my one complaint. Well, I've got many complaints with the Disney trilogy, but the main complaints was what's her name? The really tall Gwendolyn Christie, the really tall woman.
Oh,
who played
in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, she played the superstar Phasma. What was the point of that character?
She was just a nod to Phantasm.
She did absolutely nothing in that film.
No,
the two films she was in, she was like meant to be this badass character, and she just got owned completely and then
both
just
sides.
killed up. Yeah. And as Kylo Ren, owned by Rey every single time he faced off against Rey, was just completely owned by Rey. So how would we take him seriously as a bad guy?
You're supposed to take him seriously. He has a cool helmet.
Yeah, which he took off.
And then
put back on.
Yeah, then he welded it back together because J.J. Abrams.
All
right, let's stop with the Star Wars talk. Everyone here wants to talk horror.
Yeah. I'm actually just gonna. Can I just I want to share a Halloween movie franchise ranking. If I can just do that briefly.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons I want to share it is it's not a horror website or in any way. It's a Squire magazine, and you've got no interest, no knowledge about horror films, and I wanted to see what they thought were the best Halloween films in order, and they've very kindly given us their ranking. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to share their page and see what they thought, if I can do that. And I'm very, very.
Are you doing it in the main chat or the?
We'll have a look now and see how it works out. So can you see that? Can you see
okay.
me and can you see me and the screen and the website?
I can see it.
Okay. So I can only see the website, but as long as you can see me and the website. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how a very, very mainstream magazine or very, very mainstream website would rank the Halloween franchise, because I'm so used to seeing these franchises, these ranked by mainstream websites and YouTubers. So I thought, well, for people who haven't got a clue about horror films, I thought, how would they rank it? And as we can see, I don't know if this includes the Rob Zombie films.
It probably does.
They have placed Curse of Michael Myers as bottom. Seriously? I would highly go against that decision. I mean, they're placing this below Resurrection.
Yeah, Resurrection's the bottom.
So they placed it. They placed at bottom the Curse of Michael Myers. So
I'm really curious where they put 5 and Resurrection.
What do we think is number 10 then? If the very bottom is Resurrection, you're right. It is Resurrection. So at least they've got some taste, and they put Resurrection at 10th. So I think the 9th. We go with Halloween 5.
Halloween 3.
Halloween 3. Let's see. It's Halloween 5.
Oh wow. Going 5.
So, so what we got? I think next. I'm going to go Halloween 3 for the next one.
Yeah.
Did you go? You know 3.
Yep.
Now Halloween. Oh God, they are including Rob Zombie's film. So
wow.
Where have they put Rob Zombie's Halloween? Where have they put Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 then?
That remake's probably it's like worst. 3 or 4. That's probably their second.
Okay, now that's not the. Christ. So no, okay. So we know they're including Rob Zombie's films. So I'm going to say Rob Zombie's Halloween is next. Halloween 1, Rob Zombie's.
I bet you it's like third or fourth spot.
What do you think, then, Griffin?
I definitely believe it's in the top 5 for them.
So what do you think's next then? What do you think? 7?
4.
3? 4?
4.
Okay. It's Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Oh wow!
They've gone with. I thought actually, you know what? As soon as they said they'll put Rob Zombie's Halloween next, I thought, you know what? They'll probably put it higher. But they've actually. So I think Halloween 3 next for number 6.
We keep saying.
So we've got. So yeah. So what we've got? What have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 2018. So that's what we've got. Oh, right. I'm going to say H2O then. I'm going to say H2O.
I'm going to say 4.
4. Okay. Oh, you're right. I wouldn't agree with that, though. I would not agree with that. There's no way on this planet that 4 is worse than H2O. Okay, so I'm saying, what do you think? So what do you think next then? I'm going to say H2O.
Yeah, H2O. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I think H2O as well. No, Halloween 2.
Oh wow!
You can tell that this has been written by somebody who knows nothing about horror films.
Damn, 2 that low? Wow.
So we're left with 3.
I'm surprised 3 has made it this far.
So we're left with 1, 3, H2O, and 2018.
Oh, so 2018 is probably going to be number 2.
We know that John Carpenter's Halloween is going to be number 1, right?
It might not be. It might be 2018.
Well, I hope not. So I'm okay. I'm going to say Halloween 3 next.
Let's do. Let's
what
go
do you
3.
Think? 3. It is 3. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've now got original Halloween, 2018, and what was the last one? I've forgotten.
Two.
No, we've had two, haven't we? Have we had two?
Oh, yeah. Halloween 2 was number 5 on their list.
So what have we got? We've got Halloween.
It's the 2018 H2O original.
So what's the third film?
H2O. It's gonna be
H2O. Have we not had H2O on it? We haven't had...
No, we haven't had H2O.
Oh, we haven't. Yet. Okay. Oh my
Those
God,
are the 3 we haven't had on the list yet.
Jesus, why have we not had H2O yet? That's crazy.
It's gonna be number 2 or number 3. Number 3. Oh,
God,
wow! 2018.
2. Jesus.
That
so
message.
H2O
they love
2?
That message.
Freaking hell.
They love that message.
Okay, so H2O is definitely, yeah, that is ridiculous. There is no way that H2O is the second best.
H2O is the second. Wow. I will admit I'm not a fan of that film.
That is crazy.
I am not a fan of that film. I can't believe H2O number 2. That's insane.
I have got one more list by another non-movie website. So I'll just quickly run through that one as well, if I can just.
I think we lost most of our viewers from that. They're too pissed off. I don't blame them. Wow, I can't believe 2 was so low.
I just.
And then the zombie films.
I did say that it was a non-horror based, list. Esquire magazine is just, I think it's more fashion and music and stuff. But
what Daniel Craig's wearing today.
I've got another list, and I'm just going to how they do there. So let me just go to the StreamYard, share. See how this works out now. Chrome tab. Right, just let me know if you can see this.
It's loading up.
As it split up.
It's coming up.
Let me know.
Oh, yep.
Okay. So this is The Enemy. This is a music magazine from the UK. And they've done this is in 2019. So they've done their top 11 Halloween films. So I'll just do the first one anyway, because I think we saw it anyway. We both saw it. So now, nope, fuck this shit. Yes, they have Rob Zombie's Halloween bottom. So I think they are more on the ball when it comes to.
You know what? You know what Rob Zombie's response is?
So fuck. Yeah. So.
I had to get my.
Bear in mind, this is more of a. Bear in mind, this is a music magazine. Maybe they've done slightly more to the way our way of thinking. So I reckon the next film is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Probably.
What do you think? Rob Zombie's Halloween 2?
Yeah, I'm going with zombies.
Oh, they've got Halloween 5.
Oh, wow.
Halloween 5. They've gone with. Yeah.
Where would you rank?
So they're clearly more on board with the horror. I'd place it maybe about 7.
Oh, okay.
7 or 8, 6 or 7. So right, okay. I definitely think they're going to go Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 for number 9.
I'm going to go.
They seem to be pretty clued up.
I'm going to say Resurrection.
Oh God, I forgot about Resurrection. Oh Jesus, I totally forgot about Resurrection. You're probably right. Yeah, there's Resurrection. Yeah, number 9 is Resurrection.
Yes.
How did I forget about Resurrection?
Because you're trying to purge it from your memory.
Yeah, probably. So I definitely think. Okay, so I definitely think Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 is next. It's not. A Curse of Michael Myers. They don't like this film, do they? This was bottom of Esquire's list, and it's number 8 in the enemies list. So they prefer Rob Zombie's Halloween in both lists to The Curse of Michael Myers.
Well, remember,
which I think
his
is
first
insane.
film. His first film was their bottom.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Halloween. His Halloween 2. Yeah. But I think either film is not as good as this one.
They just really like cosplaying as Rocky Horror Picture Show.
So Halloween was what's week number 7. I'm going to say it's got to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 then. It's got to be soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
It is Halloween 2. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
So they put
number 7.
They put his sequel over Curse.
I've just given away number 6 there by mistake. So I'll just go straight down.
I didn't see it.
Oh, didn't you see it? Okay.
I'm gonna say Halloween 3.
Okay, you're wrong. I don't agree with this by any stretch. It's Halloween 4.
Oh, 4. Wow.
The sixth best film? No, not even that. So we're left with Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, H2O, 2018. That's right, isn't it? They're the 5 films.
Yeah, we have 3, 2. Yeah. We got 1, 2, 3. 2018 H2O.
Yeah, that's it. They're the 5 films. So I'm going to say Halloween 3. I think for the next.
I'm going to go Halloween 2. Another 2. Let's do it. Let's see if they do it.
H2O. Now we've gone with H2O. So they placed it at number 5. Esquire placed it at number 2. So we're left with 1, 2, 3, and 2018.
Oh, it's Mr. List himself, Christian Hannah Horrors in the chat.
Oh, is he? Well, he's just done this. He's been doing his list, so
I know, right?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know his opinion. So I think I'm going to say for the next film, I think it's going to be Halloween 3.
I'm going to go with 2 again. We'll go Snake Eyes.
It's 2018. We were both wrong. So it's 1, 2, 3 for the final 3. So it's basically, we know 1's going to be 1. So it's a case of they either put 3 a 3 or 2 a 3 and 3 a 2. I think it's going to be 1, 2, 3, straightforward. I think 3 is going to be 3.
I'm gonna go with 2 again. Let's.
You've been saying 2 for the last 5 films.
No. I'm saying for the last 2.
Okay.
Close.
And it's Halloween 3. It's Halloween 3.
Oh well, yep, you're right. I'm wrong.
So we all know it's Halloween 2s. We all know
what's funny. Like a lot of these lists, like I'm really shocked at how Halloween 3 is, doing so well on these lists.
I think it's a cult classic. I think it's gained in popularity over the years.
Oh, I like the film. I enjoy the film a lot, but I remember growing up hearing from people, who weren't really into horror films. They always go, "That third one was so dumb. There was no Michael in that one. No Michael." I'm like, what? Like I was not into horror films at that time, so like. I wasn't an expert, but I'm just like, what? I guess that's a big problem.
I think any sort of Halloween listing now, it's always going to be Halloween number 1, the John Carpenter 78. Whereas if you do a Friday, it's always going to be different.
Yeah.
And with Nightmare on Elm Street, the Halloween is most predictable when it comes to the top, to the number 1 spot. Friday, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's usually going to come down to 1 or 3, and some people will say 2. But with Friday the 3rd,
will say 2.
Yeah, I've not watched this video. I tweeted him before. I said I'm not going to watch this video. I'm going to save. I'm saving tomorrow night. Said I gotta get a pizza, get a few bottles, get a few bottles of beer, and just watch his ranking videos for his franchises. Because I'm surprised he hasn't done that before. To be honest with you.
Well, he's more comfortable. You know, he probably knows the films in and out now, so he can make an informed decision.
But in terms of the Friday the 13th franchise, I mean, anything could be number 1. It's like there's probably one of about like 6 films. I mean, if you look at the first, some people would put the original. I think Lorne would always say the original.
Yep.
A lot of people would say 2. I think there's a fair few people would say 3. I'd say 4.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people.
I know Piz likes 5, but there's a lot of people who say 6.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people would say 6 as well. I mean, I love 6. That was the first.
Definitely, the first 6 could be anyone's favorite.
Yeah.
But I think after 6, it's kind of a.
I mean, I know Lorne loves Jason X. I think his is. He actually said that Jason X is better than Aliens. I know.
I love Lorne.
I love Lorne, but you know, I think he was on drugs when he said that. I don't know.
Hey, I love the contrasting opinions. It's like it's one thing to hear the exact same opinion, but it's another to hear like that's what I love about Lawrence. He's a wild card.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's especially when you come to like more the obscure stuff. I mean, especially him and like Dan as well. They'll just rattle off movies I've never even heard of. Because I tend to be quite mainstream with a lot of the stuff I watch. But when I see some of when he does like a round table discussion of one of his videos, and it's for a film from like 1954 or something, I'm like, I never even known this film existed. But it's opened my eyes to some new films at least. Well, not new films, old films which I never knew existed.
Yeah,
but
it's funny. Like, you don't really see him do that much. Well, my bad. But like, there were like back in the day, like a lot of Lorne's favorites were actually English films. They were filmed in the UK. Like Hammer was on top of the world for a good 20 years. Almost.
Yeah.
Well, close. Well, they were around. Before they did Curse of Frankenstein, Horror of Dracula. Well, Dracula over there.
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, sorry, go on.
They did, they did like science fiction stuff, like the Quatermass and some other stuff that really wasn't super well known. Like they did they did a couple things that were pretty fascinating.
I don't know if Hammer is still operating as an organization. Are they still actually operating?
Yeah, they did The Lodge.
Right.
They did The Lodge, and their two of their more recent films is The Lodge and The Resident. And they did what's that one film called? The Quiet Ones, I think that was one of theirs.
Is the Lodge the American film where they basically go literally to a lodge in the middle of nowhere? Yeah, with the step
mother.
Yeah. I know Pizal loved that film. I liked it, but I wasn't overly fond of it. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't on board as some people were. I thought it was a decent film, but it wasn't totally my cup of tea. You know what I mean? I thought it was a good film, but
well,
I mean, did you discuss?
I loved it.
Have you seen *Malignant*?
*Malignant*? No, I've not
Yeah.
seen *Malignant*.
Oh, okay.
I know it happens.
I couldn't remember whether we'd spoke about it or not. See, I saw *Malignant* last week, and I thought it was a fun film. I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets from some people, but I also don't think it deserves the love that it gets from some people. In terms of, it seems to be getting a lot of hate, but it also seems to be getting a lot of love. And I always think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. I think it's a good film, but I don't think it's like anything extra special. It's certainly different, I think if you go into it completely blind, you'll have a good time.
Yeah, it's one of those films I hear it's pretty slow during the middle section, and then it's a pretty slow film from what I've heard.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's slow so much. I mean, I was never bored at any point. I think some of the CGI, well, I'd say CGI, I don't like to use the word CGI, but I mean, there is quite a fair bit of CGI, and it doesn't look too great at times.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the gore effects look a little bit
silly, hokey.
Almost like sort of like the gore effects from like something from like the 2000s. With like the blood splurts and stuff. It looks a very sort of unrealistic, almost like over the top.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that's very the mid 2000s.
But then I've heard some people say that was intentional from James Wan.
It probably was.
He was actually aiming for that look, which I don't know. And I know that a few of the shots, there's a shot of like a hospital, like an insane asylum at the beginning of the film, and I know just from experience watching old 90s films that it's based on the full moon pictures. Those like the Puppet Master films from the 90s, that's all like that look, that aesthetic, and I think he was literally going for that. Lauren's in the chat. Lauren, if you want to jump on board, man.
Lauren is in the house.
Post the link.
Yeah.
I did post like earlier on.
Christian, Jamie, whoever, Sean, anybody want to jump on?
If I can do
not Sean though.
Sean never.
Get in here.
Sean will never jump on board. He talks a good game, but he doesn't walk a good game. Yeah, but *Malignant* did have that that aesthetic of a 90s sort of movie with that the full moon pictures in parts, and almost like the beginning of the film, there's like an English like doctor who's dealing with the psychiatric patient, and she's like a really bad actress. And it's like, is she intentionally bad, or is this like part of, is she just a bad actress? Because it's almost like they're playing up to this idea of like this like early 90s like cheesy horror movie trope, which was like really was typical of that time. But maybe she's a perfectly good actress who's playing a bad actress. I don't know, but yeah, I watched the film once and immediately rewatched it and played it to my wife because I said, "Oh, you'll enjoy this." And she, in the first 10 minutes, she's like, "This looks really cheesy," and I was like, "Yeah, it's meant to be cheesy. Just go with it, and you'll enjoy it." And she did. But you've got to know what you get. You got to know what you're letting yourself in for. Don't take it too seriously. If you've gone in with the reviews in mind and you've seen these rave reviews, and you think, why is this getting rave reviews? It's not because it's the greatest horror movie ever made. It's because it's just a little bit different, and it's not trying to be something. It doesn't say. I'm sick to death of seeing these horror films which made on quite a low budget, which take themselves too seriously and try and be all artsy. I can't take that. Just if you're operating on a low budget with not the greatest actors in the world, just play for fun maybe, and just don't take yourself too seriously. You know, you haven't got Daniel Day-Lewis as the main actor, so just go with it. And I think that's what they do, because the actors in this film aren't the best. They're not particularly good. The main female is, she's not great.
She was in that Mummy remake with
right.
Tom Cruise.
I've not seen that.
Oh, that's bad.
I don't think any. I think you must have been the only person who saw that film.
Oh, my friend, he wanted to watch it. He was like, let's check this. It's funny. My friend, he used to hate Tom Cruise, but now he's absolutely in love with him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the hell happened? Why did you change your mind?
I mean, that was meant to be the beginning of the Dark Universe franchise.
Yeah, that worked out.
Literally nothing happened with it. We got one film. I mean,
that really worked out.
So the Mummy. So the whole point of the Dark Universe franchise was you had the Mummy, and was there like an end credits teaser to bring in new characters in that film, like Dracula or Frankenstein, or
I think we just see. I can't remember. I don't know if I don't.
Was there anybody in the actual main film itself apart from the Mummy, or?
Yeah, there's Russell Crowe was playing Dr. Jekyll.
Okay. But there was no Mr. Hyde.
Oh yeah, he turns into Mr. Hyde.
All right, okay.
They can't hide that.
hide that. No, I've never seen the film, so I've literally.
Oh, you're not missing out.
No.
It's bad. It's Tom Cruise's. It's probably his worst film. I think the only thing that would even come close to being as bad as it would be like Cocktail.
Lord?
Uh-oh.
You're all insane if you think that Mummy remake with Tom Cruise is any worse than the 3 films that came before it.
We're talking about the Brendan Fraser stuff.
Yeah, they're more of an insult to me than the Tom Cruise film is. They're not. The Tom Cruise film is not something I'm going to defend. It's not a mountain to die on. Believe me, it's not very good. But those Brendan Fraser films really piss me off. They're just dumb Indiana Jones remakes, pretending to be monster movies.
Were you going to stay in the chat until we started talking about those films?
Yeah.
And then you thought,
I just got home. How are you guys?
Not bad.
Doing all right.
We've just been discussing. We watched a couple of normie websites rank the Halloween franchise.
Don't do that.
Well, it was just entertaining because we wanted to see where they would put Rob Zombie's Halloween, and Halloween H2O came out highly in these 2 websites.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, then you know what they did? They figured they'd look at the box office of the franchise and they'd do the ratings based on that because they figured that would be crowd pleasers.
But it was, that same list with where H2O was number 2, Halloween 2 was number 6 on their list. I was surprised.
I'm trying to think in a box office ranking where Halloween 2 would actually be. Where'd they put H3?
It was like number 4 or 5. It was up there, which I was really shocked about. Curse and Resurrection, and then
Curse did not fare well.
Curse got to the bottom every time next to Resurrection.
Yeah. Which was I was surprised by that.
Listen, there's 4 films in that franchise that are pretty fucking bad. And I mean, I'll hear anyone's argument about what's the worst, but to me, it's a series that went badly off the rails. And I think that's why people gave 2018 so much credit, is because it didn't drool on itself. It was at least it was using a fork, if not the proper fork for the meal. So,
have you watched the final trailer? Is that a yes or a no?
I don't think so.
I've seen enough.
Well, apparently Jamie Lee Curtis is now spoiling the film on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. I don't know if it's Piz. Somebody shared a tweet saying, don't go on Jamie Lee Curtis' Twitter because she's just spoiled something else now to do with the new film.
It's not going to matter very shortly.
So, Lorne, you've suggested that you know kind of like a lot of what's going on in the film before it dropped. So, watching the trailers, it's been confirmed now to you that pretty much
it's all confirmed.
Now, the thing I would say about some of the reviews that have come in for the film, some of the websites that have been complaining about the film are almost the websites that if they complain about a film, I'm almost positive for the film, because like they usually like, I don't usually agree with their reviews, so I don't know. It's almost a lot of them are saying now that if you like the old school Halloween sequels, you might like this. And for somebody who likes the old Halloween sequels from the 80s, then...
Listen, I don't want to dissuade people, which is kind of like telling people not to stare at an eclipse anyway. Like, they're going to go see the goddamn thing. But I mean, there's a lot of things that I just want people to be very open-eyed about. It's not intended to be scary. So if you're wanting that Halloween scary film, it's not that. It's basically an action film. Jamie Lee Curtis is barely in it, less than she was in Halloween 2. So be ready for that. Don't be upset when it happens. It's very gory, so if that's what you want, that's awesome, I guess. To me, Halloween is still Halloween, the original film. And that's probably my problem, right? Not anyone's. Halloween is a great suspense piece. There's going to be zero suspense in this thing. Dialogue really, really, really hokey. Like, probably worst of series.
The trailer sort of
ends in a cliffhanger. No resolution to the story. They definitely have their Dr. Sartain moment in this thing. So be ready. Just be ready. If you like the last film, you're going to like this film. And you know what? I hope you do. I don't want anyone to have a miserable time at the theater movies. I want everyone to get everything they want out of everything they ever go to see. Problem is, I can't get 1978 Halloween out of my head when you announce a Halloween film. To me, that's a masterclass in what we now call slashers, although it's kind of an inappropriate description of the original Halloween in some ways. That's something we could discuss at a future date. If it meets all the criterion, but its heart is in a different place. I like Halloween 2. You know, the obviously the Rosenthal film. I love Halloween 3 for being such an adventurous film, but after that, at best, you get guilty pleasures like H2O or Halloween 5 for me. Most people they'd replace 4 with 5, but it's not a good franchise. It never has been, to be completely honest.
I mean, I'd agree to a point. I mean, I've always felt that the peaks of Halloween, the franchise in general, you know, were certainly higher than the peaks of the Friday franchise, but the troughs are far lower in general than the Friday franchise. I always felt that the Friday franchise was a more solid. In terms of depth, it's got more to it. But
I'm not sure if that depth is what I would go with.
Well, you know,
I'd say is if you take your favorite of both franchises, right? So for me, that's the first film in both franchises.
Yeah,
pretty easy. I go into each of them for different things. When I watch the original Halloween, I watch it for the suspenseful, moody, claustrophobic film. I don't go in for the body count. I don't go in for the kills. Like, people who go to Halloween movies for kills, I think, miss the point. Or now, perhaps the films have adjusted to those fans. But the kills are not the big deal about the first film at all. That sense of isolation, even though Laurie can run from house to house, you see what happens when she does, right? They constantly are reinforcing this idea that she's isolated and alone. And there's this thing about being a caretaker of children. There's all this subtext of the moment, which probably doesn't play for people born any later than me, probably. But for those who experienced it with that kind of social subtext of a moment for women in America, it really works. The movie is really pretty great. Hey, Sean. The series never got any traction after that to that degree. Like, I like the second film a lot, but I like the second film based on the goodwill of the first, right? Part 2 can't exist without the first film at all. Friday is a different thing. Friday is a roller coaster. Friday is about the kills, and it's about it. The first film is very atmospheric and has a wonderful sense of time and place. I don't think it feels dated, but it feels like it takes place somewhere real. And maybe that's because I live so close to where it was filmed that I really relate to it. I love Mrs. Voorhees as a villain. So maybe that's a little different than a lot of fans too, who just want Jason or nothing. You know, a lot of people give me shit for not liking 5 and always throw in my face, oh, it's because it's Jason, not Jason. Well, no. My favorite film in the series doesn't feature Jason. It ain't that.
It's interesting. What you say that it's interesting because there was a very brief period between 1980 and 1981 where that opinion you have, and maybe going into the early 80s, that would have been a completely normal opinion, because before 1981 there was no Jason really. So for you to say that Mrs. Voorhees is it would have taken maybe a few years for the Jason mythos, you know, to build as each film developed. I mean, is that something that this is slightly before my time, but do you remember at what point the Jason legend outstripped the Mrs. Voorhees as the? If you know the point I'm trying to make is she was obviously the original killer, but at some point over the subsequent films, which is before my time slightly, Jason became this far bigger icon. But for a very brief period of time, he would have been the new killer, and there would have been old school fans who would have been, no, Mrs. Voorhees is the killer, and this is just some.
I think you have to look at the time period in like a totality. You got to take a big step back, because I was young. So to ask me to pinpoint a moment when, Jason entered the pop mainstream, I don't know when that happened. Also, these films were considered fairly dangerous, slashers in general, but Friday in particular, because Friday was dangerous because it was a major studio releasing one of these grimy little 42nd Street, gore films. These teens in peril movies. This was not a respectable type of film like it is today. Today, slashers are as respected as anything. That you can put those on every multiplex in America and no one blinks. Back then, this was a big deal. Even the original Halloween, which was not your prototypical thing. It's not a gory film. It's not even a particularly violent film, although there's violence in it. There's just not a lot of violence in it. But it still fought against a certain level of, hey, this is an indie. Can we show this in suburbs? Is that where this belongs? But I can say that by the time 3 came out, the franchise was already kind of established as like the big slashers franchise, even at that point. But when Final Chapter came out, the name Jason was known to most people as the killer from the Friday the 13th movies. And then when you see when they went away from that with the 5th film, there was a bad reaction. Not my reaction, but a lot of people's reaction was no Jason, no Friday the 13th. So it had happened by 5, definitely. I think it happened before 4. And if you look at how they present him in that movie, he's kind of a super villain already in that movie. He's coming back from the dead, which, don't give me this shit. You get a hatchet or an axe in your head, you are dead. You wake up in a morgue cooler, you are dead, and have a comeback. So yeah, I think somewhere in there. So 83 to 84, somewhere in there, like Jason becomes this kind of, I don't know, pop icon for the horror genre. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. It's just that obviously, I was born in '76, so not much, not many, only a few years after you. But being in the UK, I think there's a slightly slower transition. You know, the whole slasher craze. Maybe we were slightly behind the curve compared to you guys in terms of what was coming through. I mean, we don't forget we had the whole video nasty. So we had films that were like.
Well, you had at the same. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, right? But
no, okay.
I actually want to hear you talk about this. So at the time of the birth of the slashers, the UK was in deep recession, perhaps dipping towards depression. And that certainly played into the government overreacting because there was so much they couldn't control in their society they were responsible for that they could ban movies. I've always felt there's a direct relationship there. It's like, oh, we have violence on the street, we have riots, we're going to ban violent movies. That's our reaction to the real violence out there, which of course is asinine and backwards. But I always feel like there's a connection there from the British standpoint that we didn't get here.
I compare slightly similar to, you know, like the advent of the internet, where governments and people in control panic and try and sense like what's going on. This is something completely new. How do we stop this? How do we control it? Because they didn't know what to do, and it was seen as like this, you know, the word escapes me, anti-authoritarian.
Anti-authoritarian.
That's it. You know, it's like something like rebelling against the system. It's a bit like, you know, the way the Sex Pistols was in the 70s. This is something that's going to corrupt the youth. Everyone's just going to lose their minds. So it was kind of, I think it was that way the government thought, well, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to clamp down. And basically they used a sledgehammer. Another saying is like, you probably use this in America. It's something like using a sledgehammer to stomp an ant. You know, so they basically, it's probably the wrong saying, but they basically banned all these movies when there was probably like 2-3% of them were genuinely, you know, maybe something that should be banned. And so films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and things like The Mutilator, you know, all these like lower budget films were just like stomped on and basically didn't see the light of day until, I mean, I literally think it was like the late 90s when they saw the light of day.
In a lot of cases, yeah. I mean, there had been, I think, in the case of Texas Chainsaw and a few other films, there had been reportory
I've just muted
like appearances, but they were few and far between, and you couldn't walk home in a brown paper bag with one.
Yeah.
But I'd also say that, like, the interesting thing is, from the American perspective, the problem wasn't so much the conflation of real violence and what was on screen. There's people trying to do that, but it never really was that. The problem was financial. In America, like, the government didn't step in, but every newspaper in America said, if the film's unrated or X-rated, we're not going to allow the ads to run. That was like policy, but that was not a government thing. That was just all the local papers wouldn't do it. Now, you had something like the Village Voice in New York, right? Which was a tabloid, if you're not familiar. Yeah. They'd run the ads. They didn't care. But in like any small town America, you couldn't advertise your movies if it had anything more than an R. So something like an import like Lucio Fulci's House by the Cemetery is a good example. We look at that movie today and we go, oh, there's a couple really gory moments, but it would be R today. Easily. There's stuff that's far more grotesque in Army of the Dead. Right?
Yeah.
But in its time, it was considered shocking, and there was a business interest that stepped in. A kind of puritanical, we don't want to offend the folks type of small town mentality that was all across this country. Whereas, because I think England is a smaller country, I think it's much more centralized. And the fact that the government, at least at that time, these are the Thatcher years, as it were.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not an anti-Thatcherite. I think it's a big mixed bag, but whatever. But
In my neck of the woods, we're very.
Excuse me.
Where I come from, specifically Liverpool, they hate Thatcher. Absolutely hate Thatcher. Rightly or wrongly,
Yeah. Again, I think it's a complex picture. But listen, anytime any politician reaches for the censorship button, they don't win my heart. That's for sure. Censorship is the one issue that you could lose me in conversation.
I totally agree with you on that.
I will talk to people I disagree on any subject in the world, and we can have a fun, good, healthy conversation where we walk away shaking hands. The moment someone suggests that censorship is appropriate, I am out of the conversation. I can't even engage that, because to me, those people are just trying to shut people down, and there's nothing more pernicious in the world.
Absolutely, amen to that.
But, listen, you said a second ago that you think that there might have been some films that deserve to be banned. And maybe that's hyperbole, but I'm interested in what you put on that side of the coin.
Well, as soon as I said that, I kind of thought, no, I've probably used the wrong words, because I think what I was trying to, I was coming from an angle of the government at the time. So, and I suppose this is where it's really awkward now, because growing up before kids, I would have been totally against any sort of form of. I mean, I totally believe in complete freedom of speech, and I don't believe in censorship of any description, but I do believe in stuff only being available for the right eyes. As in, I don't think kids should be able to access, hardcore pornography. As being responsible, I would restrict that, and that would be my job as a parent to stop that.
Correct.
But I think it's certain films that came out in the early 80s, maybe when they start coming through in like late 90s, early 2000s. As a parent, I would maybe be thinking, if I was a parent of a child in the early 80s, maybe I would have been more slightly concerned about a few of the films coming through, thinking maybe this shouldn't be being released. But that's coming through as a parent of a young. This is me as a parent of a young child 15 years ago. I've now that he's grown up, I've gone back to my original way of thinking. It all comes down to being. I think being a parent just changes your opinion when you've got a young kid, and then when they grow up, you go back to, your ultra sort of completely censorship-free way of thinking. Yeah, but it does when you've got a young child, you do kind of your opinion maybe does change for a few years, and then as they grow older, you kind of just go back to that way of thinking. And I'm not particularly proud of thinking like that, but it did affect at the time, because you do kind of worry about them when they are little kids, and you do see. I mean, and you do see, especially when video games come out, and it's like the kids are playing Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I know now, and I knew then, that it's my job to make sure they don't play that. It's my job to make sure they don't see those films. But
I know you don't want to see Doom.
But it's difficult. But it is difficult to try and enforce that sometimes.
So what I'd say is that when you have a city, right? If you grew up in Brooklyn, there's some great museums in Brooklyn. There are some great parks in Brooklyn. There's some great schools in Brooklyn. And then there's some alleys you just don't want your kid to go down.
Yeah. I know where you're
going. So, I mean, the question is, if you let your kid walk the city on their own, they're going to go to some pretty dark places, probably. Yeah. Not every kid, most, though. So that's kind of what you have to assume today, because kids have access to everything, and you're just fooling yourself if you think someone else is doing the policing. Now, was it that way in 1981? Well, there was no internet, but in a way that's even worse. because kids are pretty resilient about getting a hold of what they want to get a hold of. I was trading VHS tapes. I started in 1989. And you know what the first things I went for were? I mean, I was in high school, right? Just in high school. Wow. Not just in high school, but halfway through high school. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it was like, hey, this dude has a copy of Cannibal Holocaust off of a Japanese Laserdisc. This guy has a copy of all the Fulci movies. This guy has a copy of the uncut version of Argento's Tenebrae, which were all literally titles I rushed to get on VHS. So it's like and it only took a few years before that became necromantic. And so, I mean, I think the reality is that everyone needs to take their roles more seriously personally and stop looking for someone else to do the work. It's not, I don't think someone's wrong for wanting to protect their kids from material that they find objectionable in their household for whatever reason, whether it's religious, whether it's just a solid upbringing, whatever their base is. But I do feel that, like, you're underestimating your kids. You got maybe, if your kid's 12, you got maybe 4 years before they're going to find everything they want. So how do you handle that? Well, if you shut everything down, if you let the government shut everything objectionable down, now you're asking your kid to commit a crime on top of, like, but I'm not proud that I saw most of those films originally on bootleg VHS tapes. It was like forbidden fruit, technically they weren't legal to own.
How dare you?
Yeah, well, desperate times.
That's what my family did. We bootlegged. Well, we didn't bootleg, but we recorded a lot of movies off of television.
The law in America is so ridiculous about that, by the way. Technically, it is not illegal to tape something to watch at a different time. So time shifting is completely legal. Hey, I'm not going to be home to watch that movie as it broadcasts. I can record it legally and I can watch it later. But after you watch it, because if they only aired it once, you're supposed to erase that tape. That's the legal position. Like, hanging on and watching it at your leisure whenever you want, that's actually not legal. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Wow. Fun. So did you see Children of the Damned is getting a Blu-ray release?
I did not, but that's exciting. Did you see that Censor is finally getting its 4K Blu-ray release in America?
That's wild.
From Vinegar Syndrome's new imprint, which is going to handle like new stuff, which is why it's not part of the main line.
Is that the Censor, the new Censor from 2021?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you got excited. Creature and Trauma both got announced as well.
Trauma, I'm not as excited about. I've always kind of felt that was the film that told me that we were never getting real Argento back. I mean, it's his American film too. So, but yeah, Creature I'm excited about for what it is. I pre-ordered the package, and Flesh for Frankenstein in beautiful UHD as well. I love
that company's willing to do something like that.
Hey, listen, Flesh for Frankenstein's print ads, since they knew they weren't going to be in anything but big city papers, the tagline for the film was a line of dialogue from the film. You can't know life until you fucked death in the gallbladder. Period.
Amazing.
Has anybody seen the final trailer for Last Night in Soho?
I'm not sure if I've seen the final trailer.
It's I don't watch it, because if you're looking forward to the film, it's just...
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
It just reveals way too much again.
I've been avoiding trailers for that.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it could be a complete 180. It could maybe just be a complete, it might fool the audience, but it gives...
I've always felt like they should film alternative footage that they intend to only use in the trailer that's really deceptive.
Yeah, they did that for what was it, Highlander Endgame or something like that?
Well, that's Highlander Endgame. No one can prove that it was deceptive footage because no one's actually watched that movie.
Well, there's some crazy ass Highlander fans.
Yeah, apparently Henry Cavill is playing Highlander in the remake.
He's been tapped with everything.
Yeah,
that's been announced, or I mean, not announced, but rumored. Him or Tom Hiddleston.
yeah.
Tom Hiddleston.
Well, they for him was for The Crow.
They're remaking The Crow as well.
I can see that, and I can also just fall back on my statement that if Brendan Lee hadn't died making the original Crow, it wouldn't have the reputation it has today. Because it's not as good as we pretend it to be. It's just it has a weight to it with all the knowledge we have that really helps the movie. And that's a horrible thing. No one should die to make a movie better, but it's just it has all the makings of a great film, but it's not actually. Every time I sit down and watch it, I'm like, oh, I forgot how much this misses the mark on so many levels. But
isn't he like only in about like a quarter of the film as well? Is it like didn't he die sort of halfway through filming?
The problem is they had filmed a lot of stuff that ended up not being used because they didn't have key scenes shot. So the whole Bone Cowboy thing was a big plot point, which they shot like 90% of that, but because 10% of it was missing, that had to go. So I don't know. I get why people love it because it is that beautiful action goth film. I get it. But I think we're all fooling ourselves. In some ways, the second film, besides the lead performance, is kind of a better film. But again, that lead performance is not nearly as good. So
Iggy Pop
is pretty amazing in that film. The soundtrack is again really great. You have Hole's cover of Gold Dust Woman, which is one of the greatest things to ever happen to Fleetwood Mac.
Hey, anything is better than, I don't even know which one it was. I think it's the fourth one with Edward Furlong. Ooh boy.
Wasn't there 2 television series?
I don't know. I just know the one with I know there's one with Kirsten Dunst, and then there's one with Edward Furlong in that. Oh, and Tara Reid is in that one too.
Oh, God,
that's the mark of quality right there.
Tara Reid's in it. Was it late 90s then? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I think her entire career was between 1996 and 2000.
You see, that's the kind of thing. If you're going to do another Crow movie, you really have to put it in someone else's universe. It has to be a Crow versus some other character that people know. Because to just do this The Revenge story again
and again.
Wow. I don't know. Then again, I don't think it's that strong a property. I think the original graphic novels are way better than anything that made it onto screen. So,
have you seen the trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer TV show? No?
No.
No. You're not a fan of the film, then, though? I'm talking about the first one. I don't mean the sequels. Just the first one.
No. You see, the second film is a sweet spot for me because it's so fucking stupid.
Is that the one with Jack Black?
Yeah.
Jack Black with dreadlocks.
With Brazil.
With no screen credit because he didn't want to be credited. The second film is so ridiculously bad that it kind of is how I feel about that whole movement. It's all push-up bras and quick cut and like Steven Seagal action scene cutting,
Yeah.
With pop music playing over action scenes. It's pretty awful. The whole movement from Scream 2 onward, all of that stuff, I'm not a fan of.
How dare you?
I don't even really like the first film all that much. I think Scream is kind of pedestrian, to be honest with you.
Oh, boy.
But a lot of people love it. So that's cool.
Mike, there goes all your followers and subscribers.
Well, I was wondering where Lorne was for the Urban Legend live commentary, and it's like no show at all. Lorne's not a fan.
I'm not a fan of that time period. It's great that it woke horror back up out of the coma, the theatrical coma. Because yes, there was Leprechaun sequels going direct to video, but like basically horror was dead in the 90s. But on the other hand, it's like the repercussions of things that look like Gap commercials as slasher films. It's just, to me, I couldn't relate to the characters, the situations, and it violated my rule. And you've heard this before, Mike. horror works best when it deals with middle-class characters. None of those films had middle-class characters. All those families were obviously filthy rich.
Yeah.
None of those people lived anywhere near normal, regular lives. And that just makes it impossible to relate to them. Unless, I guess the ultra-rich probably finally got their slasher films, and good for them. But for me, as a guy who was working a full-time gig, you know.
They also got stuff like Fear with Mark Wahlberg and shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you did something with that, if you made the movies about wealth, then I think there would be something to be done with that. But
do you prefer Fear over like most of these other the 90s horror stuff?
The 90s were a pretty rough decade for horror, period. I mean, outside of certain high points like Candyman, the original, it's hard for me to say what I prefer. I was pretty miserable during. I mean, music was keeping me alive in the 90s because I think the first half of the decade was just the best period of music in my lifetime.
You know what's even sadder is you put me down a freaking rabbit hole, but the horror paperback. Well, like I mean, there was the Abyss, thank God, but like paperbacks was like, ooh, wow, they kind of like disappeared almost.
Yeah, well, by 2005, basically the trade paperback had taken over and the mass market paperback died. But that's the other point, Griffin. What you're saying is absolutely on point. The other problem I had in the 90s is that horror fiction was waking up from the Stephen King thing, right? So in the 80s, everyone was just trying to be Stephen King. All the novels by all the big names were all trying to be Stephen King. In the 90s, you started seeing these artists break out into all these wild stuff. They weren't getting coverage, and the sales weren't anywhere near what King was putting out. But you had a variety of different types of stories being told by a variety of different storytellers. So it was a very exciting time to drop into books, and movies went quiet. And then Scream came out and woke everything up for very young people. And if you're the right age, I'm sure you feel great about it. For me, I mean, when the Final Destination movies kicked up and then the Saw movies a couple years later, I embraced them wholeheartedly because it was getting away from that. I mean, on the surface level, that first Final Destination movie kind of looks kind of like part of the Scream wave.
Oh, yeah, it does.
But the rest of the series doesn't. I love the fact the second film only has one teenage character and they crush him to death as soon as they can. I love that. I think that's an intentional statement.
I think the opening scene of Final Destination 2 is one of the high points of the franchise. So good.
Oh, I think it might be one of the high points of the franchise, to be completely. I think first of all, I think that Final Destination 2 is the best film in that franchise, but I think it might be especially considering time period, it may be one of the best modern horror films. It really may be. I mean, pound for pound, that thing delivers everywhere this audience wants it to.
I think every death in Final Destination 2 is the lift scene. Obviously, the opening scene is the best beginning to a Final Destination film. Is it Final Destination 2 with the barbed wire fence?
Yeah.
At the end where it flies through? Yeah. There's been like 6 films, but if you can pinpoint like 3 or 4 death scenes from one film, because everything else in that franchise apart from the first 2 movies, 3 onwards, it all just merges into one. But you distinctly remember the kills from those first 2 films.
Oh yeah, and it's really crazy too because David Ellis never really got to be that household horror name because he unfortunately died just a couple of years after that. But he did make a film after that called Shark Night 3D, which is absolutely bonkers as well and deserves a cult following of its own. Is it good? Well, that's up in the air. I don't think he was setting out to make a good film. I think he wanted to make the craziest frickin' shark movie ever. And for my money, when everyone talks about Deep Blue Sea, the Shark Night 3D is a better time for me all the way through. I think Bait 3D, the Australian film, is a better time for me than Deep Blue Sea 2.
So, what'd you think of something like Stay Alive, the video game based horror movie?
That thing? I saw it. Can't tell you a thing about it.
You're going to have the writer on at one point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's funny how when people talk to you about this stuff, and we just have to find a time, and sometimes it gets away from you.
Yeah. But yeah, that infuriated me as a gamer because they like multiple times they spout out video game knowledge and then they completely get it wrong. It's like, oh.
Well, Griffin, have you seen Game Over yet?
No, I have not seen Game Over.
You fucking have to see Game Over.
I will.
And I can't tell you why until after you see the film. And after the film, you'll know. You'll know. But it's so good.
What is Game Over?
Game Over is probably not probably. It is the best modern slasher film. It's from India, which is why people have an issue. So you have to be willing to read some subtitles.
I hate reading.
Yeah, I can tell. Best final girl of all time. Taapsee Pannu plays Swapna, who is a survivor of she's a rape survivor that happened on New Year's. And inside that society, it's there's a lot of victim shaming and a lot of internalization of victim shaming. So she's kind of blaming herself for the movie for what happened. But she's a video game designer. That's what she does for a living. And it's her trying to deal with the 1-year anniversary of her assault. And oh yeah, someone is also going through her town, attacking women, placing plastic bags over their head, setting them on fire, and then decapitating them.
Lovely.
But it's amazing. I mean, she's literally suicidal. She ends up in a wheelchair by the end of the film. That's before the killer finds her. It's the ultimate final showdown of like two girls in a house versus a killer ever. It's such an amazing film. It does have a twist that some people compare with some other films, but I don't care. The reason it does it is so brilliant that damn it, doing it right matters. But it's just a great film all around.
Who's showing this? Who's streaming?
I believe I think Prime still has it.
Is it
Prime?
Is it
Prime or is it Netflix? It's one of the two.
Is it literally Game Over? Just in English, Game Over, yeah.
Yep. The poster is right over Jason's shoulder.
It's on Prime. I definitely need to see it.
Okay, yeah.
And it's bizarre because Taapsee Pannu actually won the Indian equivalent of an Academy Award for her performance in a slasher film.
Oh, it's on Netflix.
But now there's going to be multiple versions. Griff, watch the Tamil version, not the Hindi version. That's actually important.
Watch the Tamil?
Yeah. Okay. So there are many languages spoken in India because it's a huge freaking country. And culturally, it's very different. But in the South, it's mostly Tamil speaking, and that's the native language of most of the actors. So you'll get the most natural performances because they actually shoot in multiple languages. That's part of the performance roles, is to shoot the film in multiple languages. And it's just that if you're not, whatever your native tongue is, you'll of course always have the best performance.
So in terms of where they film films like Game Over, are they filmed in Bollywood, or are they filmed in a completely separate part of the country? No, separate part of the country. Bollywood is in the north, and that is what people think of when they think of India. The south is a much more rural, much more agricultural part of the country. But yeah, it's become a powerhouse for what we would call indie filmmaking in recent years. Now, keep in mind, like up north, they're slowly working away from every film being a musical and some of the more traditional aspects. In the South, they have no rules. So, for instance, Game Over has no musical interludes, no songs. It has an incredible score. In my opinion, one of the best horror scores ever. Everything on that movie just fires on all cylinders. I mean, there's a reason it's in my top 5 films of all time. It's top 5 films or horror films? No. Well, those tend to be simultaneous. The same thing with the possible exception of Natural Born Killers, which I could probably justify as a horror film, but I get that it would stretch. Heathers is a horror film. Don't start with me. I heard you, Griff.
My letter to Fangoria in '89 established that. Yeah, no. If people love slashers, please go outside your comfort zone. You will not regret it. I don't know.
Absolutely will.
And I mean, in your Mike, Indian culture is actually pretty prevalent in the UK.
Yeah, we got a large Indian population.
I'm lucky because my state is the largest per capita Indian subpopulation in America, so I have a lot more access than a lot of people. I can go see any major Indian release in America in a theater when it comes out, which is where I saw Game Over. But I realize that most people don't have that. It's getting better. AMC has done a really good job of always trying to have the top Indian release available on all their top markets. So it's slowly getting better. But all the other hotspots, Indonesia, which oh my God, Indonesian horror right at the moment is so friggin' good. There's no theatrical presence. There's no video presence. You have to search this stuff down on YouTube from people who've illegally uploaded it in America, anyway. And well, Turkey is a weird thing because the Turkish horror at the moment is super awesome. It's unbelievably. It's so much more violent and grim and nihilist than American cinema. But
sounds delightful.
Oh man. It's so good, but the problem is again like access to it. I just wish that we have all these cinemas that have like 12 screens, and they're playing 7 films that are playing on every other screen everywhere, and I just don't get it. I do not get why we can't get international cinema, independent cinema. We did during the pandemic, by the way. The pandemic, I loved going to the movies during the pandemic. Because Hollywood was afraid to release anything, so all these other films were filling up the screens. Loved it.
Nice you were able to go to the cinema. I wasn't.
I found a way. I found a way the whole time, whether it was the drive-ins or small independent cinemas that had extreme, social distancing. There was a time when a theater could only sell 10 seats. I made it happen. I just never stopped.
Yeah, we literally just everything was shut down for a long time in the UK. All cinemas, doesn't matter what they were.
Well, that's when the drive-ins became really important.
Yeah, the drive-in culture doesn't exist in the UK. It's something that I think maybe you can get. There's one in Manchester, which is like not that far from where I am, and probably London, but it's not something that's. It's entrenched in the American culture, going right back to obviously it's the 50s, is it?
Yeah. Well, as soon as post-war, so 46 onward.
So, if there is a couple of drive-in theatres in the UK, but they only came about in the last 10 years. It was copying the American culture, but that never existed in the UK. I mean, partly it's probably due to the weather. It's like I've seen my share of movies in the rain, dude. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because New Jersey only has one outdoor theater left. So, and I say outdoor theater intentionally because so a true drive-in is different than what a lot of outdoor theaters are. A traditional drive-in would have speaker posts and would have door to vehicle accessed concessions. A true drive-in is a very specific thing in the purist mindset, and unfortunately, I've never experienced the pure version. I say drive-in, but they're really outdoor theaters where you walk to one building and that's where the snacks are served. In the old days, you'd have servers like always coming around with flashing flashlights on the ground. You'd wave them down and say, "Hey, I want a hot dog and a fry," or whatever. I never had to experience that, but no. Pennsylvania, however, has many still, and so if I'm willing to drive an hour, I have my choice of 3 drive-ins. If I'm willing to go an hour and a half, I have a lot more options, including one that. Kind of world renowned for showing genre fare. I went and saw Joe Bob Briggs' an episode of his show recorded live there. So, yeah, I mean, I have those options, and I get it. I'm fortunate because of where I am, but everyone should do what they can to get out of the comfort zone of just whatever pops up on screen. I mean, I think people get so excited about your Candymans and your Halloween Kills simply because that's all they're aware that they have as options. And makes me very sad because I think the good stuff is always going to be under the covers a little bit.
Going back to you were talking about
Halloween.
No, no. Well,
I got my Halloween quota for the night, for the week.
You were talking about Game Over and the issue with subtitles and different dialects and how it comes across. I was a bit of a virgin when it comes to a lot of these Italian horrors, So I've very first watched this week of Bay of Blood.
Oh.
And Inferno.
You didn't have a good time with Inferno. I did read a tweet.
I didn't. Now, is there a subtitled version of Inferno? Or is it just a badly dubbed version? Because the badly dubbed version is so bad that it just took me off the film. The acting, it's dubbed so. I'm trying to find the word. It's like they're not even reading off the script of the film they're taking part in. It's just so random and bizarre. It's just.
And sometimes that works. But I agree, Inferno is not the best example. What Inferno does really well is just have that sense of an unreality. And if you lose yourself in the movie, it has a very specific tone and attitude, not atmosphere, attitude. That movie has a really weird storytelling sensibility. And I love that. I'm not going to be one of those people that says it's better than Suspiria. That's ridiculous. But they're very different types of narratives. Suspiria is such a tight narrative. There's no story, but there's a narrative. Whereas Inferno is kind of like Argento taking you to visit Argento land without a guided tour. It's like, ooh, look at what's happening in the park. See the guy trying to drown cats? That's going to be end badly. Okay, well, what's happening in this apartment? Oh, look, it's flooded. It's just this kind of a mad ride through Argento's subconscious, and I love it for that. But it's also a film that doesn't care about traditional pacing or traditional plot development. Things happen as they just want to happen. In that regard, it's almost like a Fulci movie, except Fulci would never have let a film go as long or as airy as Argento did. But I love it for what it is, and I think the ending, which is obviously a big, blatant homage to Mario Bava's Black Sunday, is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I see. I'm not someone who didn't dislike. I really like Suspiria. I mean, obviously it's got some of the tropes of, Inferno. I love the cinematography. I love the color, the color palette, and obviously some of the elements of Suspiria are a bit bewildering. Some of it is, but despite all that, it was enough. I was sucked in enough to. The dubbing as well to not bother me, but with Inferno, it was just so. I mean, the scene where he's being eaten by the rats, and then the guy in the hot dog stand just runs out, and I'm like, right, okay, I'm lost now. I have no idea what's going on. This is just. I was just lost at this point.
It's definitely a fever dream. It's definitely not meant as any kind of hard reality. And I think that's true. I think that's true of Suspiria in a different way, but Suspiria is a much more commercial film. It's so funny to say that because there's so much in that film that's not commercial, but comparatively, I mean, Inferno is like the most pure Argento film. I think maybe Deep Red is more pure, but because it has like the puppet and all that stuff, which is just like mind-blowingly strange and offbeat and it serves no legitimate narrative purpose, but it's awesome, right? And I think the whole movie, I bet Inferno is like all that. It's all the puppet scene from Deep Red. I wish we had that Argento back. It's been a long time.
Is he still working? He's getting on. He's getting pushing 80 now, is he?
Yeah, but he's I think in post-production right now on the next thing.
I mean, all the sort of classic horror directors now are all. I mean, John Carpenter looks like he's ready to drop dead for the last 20 years. He actually looks younger now than he did in 1980. But it's we're going to start losing him soon, and it's going to be a sad day. I mean, I think most of these directors are past. John Carpenter's never. I think he's done with directing anyway, and he's not really done anything decent since. Well, he could argue In the Mouth of Madness. I would say They Live. I didn't like In the Mouth of Madness, but
heresy.
I'm not a huge fan of In the Mouth of Madness either.
I like it.
Sorry, Griff. It's about books. Of course you like it. There's a lot of great ideas in it. It doesn't pull together, and sometimes it just looks really cheap, which is kind of a sign of later Carpy, right? I think I started seeing like a slide in my interest in his films as early as Prince of Darkness. Prince of Darkness is a weird film. It doesn't quite work for me.
I like it.
I love it.
I like it a lot.
Well, that's cool. It just doesn't work for me the way that The Fog is almost a perfect movie for me. Yeah. That's like what I want from horror.
Oh, hey, guess what? I got the paperback. The Dennis Etchison paperback of that novelization.
That's so cool.
I was like, yes.
Etchison for the win, man.
Yeah. I just need a shit. He did a ton. I know he did Videodrome, Halloween 2, 3.
Don't sleep on his short story collections because he was one of the most talented short story writers that we've ever had in the genre.
Oh,
Pick up one of those collections.
Is it meta horror? Or, he did for Abyss.
Yeah, but there's a collection. I want to say it's called. Is it called Drawing Blood? Seeing Blood? Seeing Red? Drawing Red?
Okay. Oh, is it Red Dreams?
No. There's the Dark Country, which is the first collection, which is the one that won the Stoker and is kind of like considered a classic. And there's another one. I'll look it up for you. I'm not gonna. It's not exactly compelling viewing to watch me Google. So
yeah.
But don't sleep on Etchison. He was just amazing.
But yeah, I love the movie The Fog. I think it's got the best atmosphere of right next to Escape from New York. I think Escape from New York and The Fog had the best atmosphere in a Carpenter film.
I think the fog, because that only went on from the late 70s to early 80s, is so strong. The Fog often, from what I've seen, often falls towards the bottom end of that run. But I love the film, but I can't disagree because I love the other films so much that maybe The Fog for me is slightly. It's just not quite at the same level. It's certainly not at the level of Halloween or The Thing.
You prefer like Christine over The Fog?
Oh no!
That's I'm talking. No one has ever said that.
No. I'm talking more like 76 to 82. So Assault on Precinct 13, I put above, and Halloween and The Thing. And
Elvis?
No, not Elvis. You did Dark Star as well, right?
Well,
Dark Star.
So everyone did Dark Star. The Dan O'Bannon, but everyone shot a piece of that film. It's like the terror of the Corman production. Listen, I respect and I get it. I get that I value mood and atmosphere more than the average horror fan viewer, right? I get it. Like that's not something I can defend. It's not a tighter story than Halloween or The Thing. But for my money, if my blood was on the table, I would say there isn't a moment in The Fog where I go, really? But you know what? I have that moment. I have that moment twice in Halloween, and I have at the very end of The Thing, the moment McCready goes into the basement, I want to shut the movie off before he gets down there. Because I think the movie falls on its face after such spectacular heights. The stop motion that didn't even work, so they cut most of it. The monster running through the floor, It's so smart about integrating with people, but it's just like this big dumb sock puppet at the end. All that mystery, all that wonderful, and the Jaws line. It's that ending is just not up to the rest of the movie. And unfortunately, I like everyone else. Endings, if you land the ending, you deserve the movie. But when you don't, you don't. I love The Thing. Don't get me wrong. But that ending is way below the quality of the rest of the movie. To me.
Is there a story that's as to why John Carpenter didn't score The Thing?
Because it was his first big studio, and he said studio film, and he said he just didn't have time.
Right. Okay. And that film bombed as well, didn't it?
Yep. Horrifically.
Yeah.
Though it's worth pointing out, it was the summer of E.T.
Yeah.
Not enough Warrens went and watched it.
Oh, Jesus, man. I got forced to go see E.T. I wish I'd been The Thing.
Oh.
But
did it drop at like roughly the same time as well? Like in terms of
2 weeks apart.
Is that it? Yeah. Before or after?
I researched this.
Little bit different of an environment than it is today, though. Understand that like the opening weekend wasn't as important as it is today. So films were expected over the course of a month and a half to kind of build steam. Whereas, The Thing was dead in its theatrical run. In the second week, it was declining, and it opened soft, and it was just a disaster for the money.
Did it drop after E.T. had opened? I'm assuming
it dropped off the map after E.T.
Which is so. It also came at the same time, the exact same day as Blade Runner,
which also had problems.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think everything.
I guess that Blade Runner must have did something, because
Blade Runner had great word of mouth because of the visual effects, and everyone knew it was a shoe-in for the Academy Award. So I think it had that, but in general, it was panned by just about every reviewer out there as being too long, too boring, too ponderous, and all those are legitimate critiques of Blade Runner. I like living in worlds, so I like Blade Runner.
And that's the director's cut, which is much quicker paced, honestly, than the other versions.
I will say I hate saying this because I do love Ridley Scott, but Blade Runner 2049 is a better movie.
I agree.
Now, will it age? That's an open question. It's hard to tell that from the outside, but right now I'm saying it's a better film.
Back in the early 80s, or up into the mid 80s, in the States, were cinemas just one screen? At what point did you get multiplexes? Because in the UK, multiplexes only really became a thing, I think, by the 90s. In the 80s, it was just one film, maybe two at the most played. And so you had to, it was the biggest films that got shown, and a lot of the smaller films just got pushed to earlier screenings, and it was very difficult for a smaller film to really make an impact. But obviously, America being a bigger country, I wasn't sure whether maybe you've always had the multiplexes.
We haven't always had the multiplexes, but by the mid 70s, they started popping up in cities. In fact, you can see even earlier examples. There's some movies that actually have movie theaters in them in Manhattan, and you can see that there's like 3 screens because there's 3 things on the marquee. But as far as what we think of today's multiplexes, mid 70s they start popping up. By the mid 1980s, nothing else was being built. But yeah, I grew up with mostly single screens, just because they were older businesses. But I had the Washington Twin Cinema in Washington, New Jersey, and that had 2 screens. And it had been a 1-screen movie theater that they converted, but that was before I remember. I was taken as a very young kid to go see Little Orphan Annie, or Annie, I guess, the thing that Tim Curry's in. And it was, and I don't remember anything about the movie because I hated it as a kid and I refused to go back. But I remember the movie theater, it's like in extreme detail. Movies were always important to me. Like the experience of going to the movies was always intoxicating to me. It was like being in a different planet. It was like being an astronaut because it was so exotic to me. And I've never lost that. That's why when people last year before, were all talking about, oh, I don't care if movie theaters don't come back because I have this great television at home.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Not only is it not the same, it's condescending to those of us who enjoy the experience. I don't care what television you have at home. I'd like the option. So I'm sorry that the business model says you have to wait a month to see your movie on streaming. I feel real bad for you, but you want to rob everyone else because the business model demands a certain level of attendance. No.
Well, you know what? Get with the times.
You know what? As scared as we are of censorship, the theaters play an important role in pushing back the censors. They really do, because once things are just being piped into our houses and there's no business model in front of it, besides, all they have to do to suppress a film is not have it show up in your search results. That's it.
Netflix and Amazon Prime can't even recommend stuff that isn't censored. I can't get my head around. We've got an Amazon Prime subscription. My wife uses it. We've had Netflix in the past. YouTube seems to instinctively know what I want to watch, despite the fact that there's billions and billions of videos on YouTube, the most random stuff imaginable. They seem to know what I want to watch just from
Dude,
Amazon Prime don't even know that my wife's been watching the same show for the last 7 weeks, and when she loads up Amazon Prime, it doesn't even feature on the homepage. She's only watched one show. The whole of Amazon Prime hasn't been used. They can't even get that right. And Netflix is just as bad. Netflix is horrendous for that.
So one of the things that's hilarious to me is that to show you how not secure our lives are. When I'm writing, I do a lot of spot research. Like big research you do separately, but you're writing, you go, you know what is that called? What is this thing? And so you kind of Google around to find out the answer. So my spam inbox the next day always reflects all the crap I searched for, like companies trying to sell me everything I searched for in research, everything, every day. So it tells you that no matter what anyone believes, we're being sold.
Yeah,
every moment.
Absolutely.
I remember literally mentioning a product. I don't want to say it again because it'll probably happen again, but mentioning a product to Jonathan on one of his shows, and then next day my inbox was offering me it, and I'm like, that was on a friggin' stream.
Yeah.
Vocally, that wasn't even keyboards.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I've tried to explain this to my in-laws who are like 75, and they can't grasp the idea. They go, no. And they're very, very basic with they've got smartphones, but they do the basics, but they'll be talking. And then she'd be surprised when she gets an email to recommend something. And she's like, oh, that's strange. I'm like, yeah, because it's been listening to you for the last hour. And she just can't grasp the idea that these things are listening to you all the time.
And you know what? This is what modern horror films should be doing. Forget about your Halloween Kills and your Candymans. This concept of our lives being completely open to this kind of prying eyes. It's a perfect time for those paranoid thrillers right now. And they can have horror elements. They can have supernatural elements.
Bring back the net.
Don't bring back the net. But this is the type of thing that we should be covering it. All the stuff that kind of freaks us out that's really going on needs its horror exaggerated counterpart on film. And that, well, you know what? I shouldn't do that. No, I won't do that. Because it's going to bring up another Indian film, but we've already done one for the night. It's going to destroy your stream.
It's it. I'd be curious to know, in terms of like, I know what my answer is, in terms of what film in the last 20 years has used the internet to the best effect in terms of a horror film. And this is a film that kind of, I don't think you'll like this film actually, but it kind of splits opinion, but I loved Unfriended.
I haven't never seen it.
Oh, okay. I don't know if Griffin has 2014,
yeah,
I think.
I saw it.
I love that film. And one of the reasons I love the film is it's basically 5 people in a Zoom chat. I think it's like a Zoom. It's like a Skype call. Zoom. This is before Zoom. It's like a Skype call. It's 4 or 5 people, and they're getting haunted by somebody they bullied at school. Spoiler alert. But the thing that I think it does well, which in this day and age is important, is they have all the right it's Skype, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. They have all the legitimate websites, and I think that is so important. For this type of film, it lives or dies by having that authenticity. And I think I meant to ask you this one. I think I might have asked you this before, Lon, but it's how does a movie acquire, in terms of Impairments, how do they acquire because we've all seen these cheap horror films where it's not Google, it's like Spoogle or something like cheap. So how does a film acquire?
I love the way you said that.
Or how does and this wasn't a big budget horror film, but they acquired every single official, all the social media sites. There's no fake sites. Everything was legit, but just before I finish, it could potentially make these sites look maybe in a bad way as well, show them in a bad light. So how do they go about getting these?
So it's a weird thing. You can show a product in a film without permission. If it is a publicly available product that is sizable enough that there's already public opinion about it. So show a can of Coca-Cola. Coke really can't do much about it.
They would like to.
They would. And every once in a while, they'll strike up a lawsuit. It usually doesn't go anywhere. But generally speaking, with something like a search engine, the more dangerous proposition is you don't want, because there's still no law saying that Ask Jeeves needs to give equal search results, right? They can base their search results on whatever they like. They're a private business. So the problem is if you use Google in your movie, is Google the only one who's going to show you in search results? So that's where that's the only aspect in which it becomes a problem. Now, using it as part of the plot, you could technically, probably, if it depends how it was being used, but you could probably suppress that if you were Google, if you wanted to, only because you have so much power over communication, period. But there's nothing stopping anyone from, for instance, you can shoot, hey, Jonathan, you can shoot a landmark that everyone recognizes if it's in the public square. But if it's on private property, you can't, right? It's kind of the same thing. If Google were to charge for their service, it would be so far off limits to put anything beyond the splash page in your movie. Generally speaking, they partner with all. That was brief.
Come back, Jonathan. It's okay.
They generally speaking, they partner with all these companies, though. And there's nothing to really be lost by partnering and allowing, unless you're going to suggest that Google is actively, selling your privacy or whatever in your movie. It's probably fine. But I mean, it's a careful thing. Again, like you take a photo of the Washington Monument, use it in your film, not a problem. But go into someone's backyard, now you got a problem. And it's the same thing with what's online or any other or any product.
The great thing about Unfriended, which for me anyway, it's regardless of people's opinions of the film, is the Skype call. Just the Skype phone number. I'd never heard that before because I never used Skype, and it's quite chilling in the film when the call comes in, because the call's coming from the antagonist, and whenever I hear that call now, it just reminds me of that film, and I get a kind of like a sort of like not a shiver, but it immediately takes me back to that film. there's an ominous sound to it for me, and I think the film just did a really, really good job of. I think in terms of
have you seen
social media. Sorry, go on.
Have you seen One Missed Call?
Yeah, I didn't like that film.
But that ringtone has that effect on a lot of people.
Well, you talk about like the original.
Yes.
Have you seen the Japanese version? Mike?
Sorry, no, I've not seen the original version.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, then, you need to at some point fix that to repair that reputation.
That's why I wanted to.
Where did Jonathan go? Was that literally it?
I don't know. He came. Jonathan sometimes
heard his name mentioned and then showed up and then left.
I see. He was being clever.
So, I've been reading James Herbert's The Rats.
Yes, you have.
I love it. I love how irreverent Herbert is. Like, he don't give two fucks.
No.
In what style is his style like? What would you compare it to? Because
probably close to Layman, honestly, right?
I love Layman. I mean, that's all. I love Layman, and apparently Layman was bigger in the UK than he was in America. From what I've read, he was apparently
he was pretty big in the paperback original realm across the board. I mean, not all of his. He did have hardcovers, but mostly people found his work in cheap paperbacks in the bookstore.
There ain't cheap no more. At least the leisure ones are, but thank God.
Yeah, there's very few leisure titles that have gained in value. There's not much. It's still recent though, I mean, it's
That's why I said thank God.
in terms of I've made my love for Layman like clear to you, Lauren. Like, who would you recommend in terms of who's like closest to his style in terms of like the setting? I love where he sets the books. Like beachside resorts. Like cabins in the middle of nowhere. I just literally a beast house, a cellar. It's.
Have you read any John R. Little?
No.
He might be one, and of course Bentley Little as well. If you want to go a little bit more literary, who else would be another good match for you? I'm also trying to keep it in the same basic time period because I think that's going to play into your love.
He honestly would probably like. Did you ever read Brian Keene?
No, literally, my horror, my where I go with horror from growing up, it went Stephen King.
This is easier.
Sean Hudson, Richard Layman, and Dean Koontz.
Simon Clarke. That's your answer.
There you go.
Blood Crazy. Just Blood Crazy all day. First of all, it's a fellow Brit. He's a great guy. You can, after you read Blood Crazy, go back and watch the episode on my channel. It's a classic modern horror novel. He's a Brit. It's pretty amazing. I would avoid. I don't want to say. I'm not a big fan of darker. But besides that, I would recommend anything the band has put out. Don't want to talk to anything.
I think you would dig Herbert, Mike. I think you really would. Rats in the Fog and stuff. That's set in Mario London, but
is the Fog? Is John Carpenter's The Fog based on the James Herbert book?
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure whether James Herbert set that in the US, even though I know the Rats are set in London, but
the Rats is nuts, and
yeah, it is.
Its two sequels are even crazier. Although I think the first book is probably the best.
It's pretty freaking good, and that's just like his first published story. Well,
Moon is still his classic, though. I mean, but it's a very different book than Rats. Rats is supposed to be a romp, and it is. Moon is like legitimately go for the throat.
Is James Herbert still writing, or is he retired?
He passed away.
Oh, he's died. Oh, I didn't know. I thought he was like. I knew he would have been getting on in age, but
what's crazy is his books are super readily available in your country. Like they are. you could still go up. I've been looking up in like Amazon UK. They're like, oh yeah, you want to buy some of his books?
Well, he was very, very popular right along the whole rise of Stephen King years. So he was very much a contemporary, and he kind of rode the wave of that time period too. So all that pre-Barker, pre-McCammon years, those writers, so many good. I mean, I'm a broken record, but Thomas Tryon, obviously, like just a guy that went from being incredibly popular to no one talks about today, and I can't figure it out. So.
You'll like this, Lorne, but I'm not sure how much older Ramsey Morgan is. Is it Ramsey Morgan?
Campbell?
Is it Campbell? Ramsey Campbell. He's the guy from Liverpool, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much older than Clive Barker he is. He's probably a fair bit older than Clive Barker, maybe about 10 years, maybe. But literally, where I grew up, if you come out of my road, walk down, 20 yards, you got a big roundabout. Do you have roundabouts in America?
We have circles.
Yeah, it's a big circle. And on the corner of this big circle is the library, which is the new version of the library that Ramsey was talking about, where, on the chat where I commented. And literally on the opposite side of the road, about another 20 yards up, is the school where Clive Barker went to school.
Nice.
So two authors, literally.
Yeah, well, I've said it before, but Charles L. Grant, the great author and anthologist, lived 20 minutes from me, and I even at the point where I realized that was a thing, and he was doing events locally, I never bothered to meet the man, and I will forever regret that. That is inexcusable to me. That he's the guy. More than Stephen King, he's the guy who made me want to write. Those anthologies, those Shadows anthologies, and Griff, I know I've been on you forever, but you need to buy those Shadows anthologies. They're cheap. You won't break the bank doing it, but unbelievable curator.
He got together with Catherine. I can't ever say. I don't know how to say her last name. Catherine.
PTA.
Yeah. I don't know how to say it, but I picked up a couple of her books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were married or say, but I know they were together for a while.
Yeah. I don't know the exact. I don't really know. Back then, there wasn't really the internet to give us the other side of the business, right?
Give us the lowdown.
Yeah, but I mean, and Charles Grant also, when Twilight Zone magazine was the go-to place for horror fiction, which was that way for 12, 15 years, he was constantly in the magazine, constantly. His novel, The Pet, is considered a modern classic. It's not my favorite of his works, but it's considered a modern classic. But again, 20 minutes from my house. I could have knocked on his door, and knowing what the man's reputation, he would have invited me in for tea, and we could have talked. But I never even went to one of his signings, and he literally did. I managed a record store 3 doors down from a bookstore where he was doing a signing. I have no excuses.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm an idiot.
What's the Americans' opinion of Dean Koontz? Because over in the UK, he's a big author. In terms of it's like Stephen King, and he's probably the next one down.
Depends what group of people you're talking with. In the mainstream, you're probably about right. But he's really, and listen, he's been a thriller writer for 20 years now. What's the last horror that he's done? Much like Clive Barker, he keeps getting lumped into that horror bucket, but he really hasn't done much in the genre for a long time. But he's definitely still a huge name. I mean,
what's great was and Melanie Tim's Revenant, one of the characters in there, they go, I just finished the new Dean Koontz book. Wasn't as good as the older stuff. I'm not bullshitting that. That was 95 too.
Has much of his stuff ever been released on, translated into film, or
only
Koontz?
2 or 3?
Yeah.
Watchers.
I know The Face of Fear, which is a book I owned, which is about 2 serial killers.
Well, that's a little bit different. I'm not an anti-Kuntz guy, but I think when you talk to a lot of people in the that are deep into horror fiction, you'll get a chillier reception to Kuntz than you would in the mainstream. I mean, I think that's just because there's a lot of, if you're well read in the genre, there's not as much of a need for the big commercial guys. I mean, again, McCammon still has his huge supporters and fans, and he deserves them. So does Kuntz. But certainly, if you're talking to the hardcore, as you probably noticed, as we completely derailed your stream into fiction here, with Griff and I, which tends to happen with he and I, but we don't really mention those guys. We don't really spend hours talking. We can go talk about horror fiction for 2 hours and not use the name Stephen King or Dean Koontz or Robert McCammon or John Saul, who was another big 80s guy. They just don't come up because we're so excited to talk about all these other voices.
There's so many. There's so freaking many horror, fiction writers. There's such a plethora out there. It's insane. And I'm going to start slowing down because I've been looking and I'm just like, oh my God. Lauren's opened the floodgates.
Good to know that I was a bad influence on someone. Do a lot of these newer authors now, do they just tend to release digitally, or are they still actually getting physical releases? Is the way to go now just to go through Amazon Kindle, or?
No, well, no. I mean, if you have any kind of a readership of any kind of size, you need to have the physical book available. As far as do they self-publish, that's a big mixed bag of people. Like Jeff Strand self-publishes, and but he has a fan base to support that. If he was still building that fan base, it wouldn't work. I'm still at a point where I need a traditional publisher. If I self-released a new novel, I'd be fighting an extremely uphill battle. But with a publisher on your side, that opens up certain doors. So it depends. It's also a very competitive business. Mm-hmm. And that's for the people who can only name 5 horror writers. It seems like it shouldn't be, but it really, really is. So
everybody's vying to pick up the scraps after King.
And listen, King, immensely important to the genre, obviously. I just don't like the fact that a lot of people think he's the only guy out there doing it.
The buck stops with him.
Yeah, and that's and the media that support that concept really piss me off. Because honestly, if you're the average person doing your 40-hour-a-week job, reading Entertainment Weekly once a month, you're not going to have any other impression. You're not going to know where to turn for anyone but King. And that's a problem.
I think it's big, partly because Stephen King was big before the internet as well. He just kind of just transcends everything. And I mentioned this a week or two ago, but, as I say, you walk into an airport or you walk into a bookstore and he takes precedence. And even when he dies, his old books are still going to take sense. It's like if you go to a fantasy section, it's going to be Lord of the Rings. It's going to take front and center. A book that was released 60 years ago over the latest, up and coming franchise from a new up and coming fantasy author. I suppose for every genre, you're going to have these old authors who are going to dominate, and it's going to be hard to topple them.
So I always say that King's success, is that he was writing some incredible novels, right? But
Brian De Palma.
It's Brian De Palma and American Express. I will always say this. De Palma's carry puts him in a different category among horror writers because it was such a groundswell support for that film. He was already a best-selling author, and I'm not taking anything away from all that work. And the novel itself is a powerhouse. It's a mover. But that film reached a lot more people than the book ever did. And then on top of that, he's the first horror writer that suddenly is appearing on your television between that the 7:00 news hour between segments selling American Express card. I mean, That never happened before, and I don't think it's happened since. I think it's the only time you had a public face of horror as a creator, right? If you've never seen the Amex commercial, Mike, Google it. It's him walking through a haunted house and saying, "I don't tell people I wrote Carrie. Instead, I carry the American Express card." But that ad ran for 3 years. I mean, and that was free advertisement for him because it was all over the place. It was selling the Amex brand. Carrie had been so huge. And then to be fair, for the next 9 years, he's coming out with a book a year that's hitting, and big titles, legendary titles now. His success is completely deserved. I never want anyone to think that I'm downplaying that. I'm just concerned about all the other people who are putting out this tremendous work that have not gotten the attention. I mentioned Jeff Strand. Jeff Strand's Pressure is a stone cold horror masterpiece. He's releasing a sequel I think next month. I'm not going to speak whether the sequel will be any good, but that first novel is a powerhouse. It's awesome. Where's the film version? Where's the Amex commercial for Jeff Strand?
Yeah, and what's fucked up is a guy like Herbert, he just got another one of his books got adapted into a trash PG-13. It's like, and Herbert is not a PG. His material is not PG-13. I mean, like, okay, Fluke, something like Fluke, or like he did a couple fantasy stuff like Once, and I haven't read everything, so I'm still just
Either have I, man. Believe me, you've been hitting me with author names recently, and I'm like, dude, now you're going deeper than I go.
Yeah.
But Mike, I mean, I don't want to lead you here, but I think so often when we talk horror, we talk movies, and we talk about the same, I don't know, 15 titles. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think that everyone who wants something new, everyone who wants something exciting, you're looking in the wrong place. And I know you want a movie. I get it. But do yourself a favor, try. Because there is no shortage of great horror stories that'll make you feel things you've never felt before. And frankly, a lot of this stuff is never going to be a movie. So you're going to live without it simply because it hasn't been filmed? I don't know. That seems incredibly sad to me. I love movies. I will watch more movies in my lifetime than I will have read books. That's absolutely true. There's no way at this point for books to catch up to film. But I'm glad I do both. I mean, I feel so much more rewarded for doing both.
I think with all the damn books I bought, I think I might be close to this thing.
If you finish all of them.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm just trying
oh my gosh. I was trying to read read Herbert's Rats like several times this week, and then my phone was just blowing up, and that never happens. But recently it's like I'm trying to get in this book, and all of a sudden like my phone is just going nuts. It's like, damn it, I'm trying to get into this.
Yeah,
I want to know who's next going to get ripped off next.
You do need to turn off notifications if you're trying to read a book. Because it's back in the day, if you pick a book up, you just read. I remember back in the day before the internet, I could read a book in a couple of days. If it, a reasonable sized book, like 300, 400 pages. For me to read a book now, it takes me, it could take me a month because there's just I get so distracted by other stuff, and especially occasionally I might download a book onto my phone or my tablet. And if you're doing that, you can't, unless you turn notifications off, it's popping up on the screen every 5 seconds, and it's hard to avoid. And I try to avoid it, but it's just, if the book's not, if say like a certain chapter's not grabbing your attention, and your mind wanders, and you just get distracted by something on the TV, or just watch this YouTube video for 5 minutes, it's difficult.
Lauren's doing a new interview.
Well, I think we have a little break from that for the next couple of weeks, so you should be fine. Get your reading in now.
Yeah, I'm gonna plow through the Rats and the Fog.
That's cool.
For sure.
So where's the Fog set then? Is it set? It's set in England.
I'm pretty sure it's set in England. Why wouldn't it be?
I think it is.
I was because in one you were doing a stream long with an English author, and I was looking for a very specific type of setting for like an English horror novel, which is like a rural, maybe, but something like by the sea or maybe in the countryside. And if the Fog sounds like it could tick that box, maybe, because obviously I don't want to. If it's going to be set in England, I don't really want a book that's set in like London, like in like a big city. I'd much rather that sort of like rural, sort of like Cornwall.
Yeah.
If anybody knows Cornwall, great place for a setting for a horror film or horror novel. Sorry.
I just Googled to make sure that I'm remember. I've not read The Fog in probably 20 years. No, definitely more than 20 years. Jesus, I'm old. So I just Googled to make sure I'm right. Yeah, no, it's a small rural village.
Ooh.
Right. That sounds like it's right up my street then.
Well, apparently, there was an interview he did. It was written interview, and he talked about how the reason why he wrote the Rats trilogy was it was a condemnation of corporate cities, people, because kind of the main baddies of the Rats and such, well, at least the first one, is the corporate medical.
Yeah. Oh, that continues. And that's, again, what do we always talk about? Like, horror is a manifestation of real world anxieties. We do worry about companies becoming too powerful and unlawful. What are they doing to the air, the sea, the land? Are they polluters? Are they polluting our heads? What's that instinct towards censorship we were talking about before, except the fear of people forcing you to think a certain way, right? And that's where the very legitimate impulse to censor comes from. It's the wrong answer to the right question. Sometimes you need like rats eating people's eyeballs out in order to get the message home that maybe we should be a little bit more careful about who we hand our money to,
But another kind of on the same team. I have not seen these films. I know, Lauren, we talked a little bit, but the House films. Have you seen those, Mike?
I've seen is it from like the mid-80s?
Yeah, the Sean S. Cunningham.
Yeah, I think I've seen the first one, maybe two. I don't think I've seen anything after two. It's a long, long time since I've seen those films, though. There's like a Nazi soldier involved in, like an undead Nazi.
It's an American soldier.
Okay, it's an American soldier, but it's an undead
American soldier. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the first film's really it's a really, really good film. The second film is bad in ways that makes you want to love it, and I do love it, but it's bad. The third film, which is released as the Horror Show in America, is just, it's a supernatural slasher, but it's more than that. It's really great, and the cast is just amazing. Brian James, who from Blade Runner, is our villain, Max Jenke, and the lead is Lance Hendrickson as a cop with PTSD from capturing Jenke, who needs to see him die. And for the people out there who always try and convince me that Shocker is a good movie, The Horror Show is a way better version of the same story.
How dare
Sorry, Mike.
Shocker is a great movie.
Shocker's not a great movie.
We'll agree to disagree.
We don't have Piz to sing the theme.
Yeah, exactly.
Does Piz like Shocker? I'm not even sure.
I'm sure he does. Yeah. And I'm sure, and Christian loves it because of the score or the soundtrack.
Hey, there's one cool part though, that's the kind of his dreams with his dead girlfriend. That's the part I liked about the movie. I thought that was really visually creative. I
think it's of that time period where they were putting a lot of effort into horror movies, which is the good side of the Freddy effect. The bad side is it's definitely, that film has a lot of Freddy effect going on.
It is like, I think it is like maybe 15 minutes too long. It does drag on a little bit. a little bit too long.
Yeah.
After he's actually sentenced, actually when he is finally sentenced to death, and then it carries on again, and it just feels a little bit too
Well, it's
much.
like 3 separate movies. I mean, it just is. But a lot of those same ideas are kind of present in Horror Show, but it's done as a haunted house movie, but happens to be a supernatural slasher. So, and I think the mood is much better. And hey, he doesn't have the final credit on it really, but directed by James Isaac, who of course directed Jason X.
Better than Aliens.
Better than Aliens.
Famously better than Aliens. That's an entirely different.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say anymore.
I'm just if Jonathan was here, he'd
Jonathan and I have hashed this out. It's fine.
I was there.
It's Jay that still hasn't seen the light on the Aliens 3 versus Aliens debate. So.
Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up now, guys, because it is 2:45 in the UK. So I'm up at 7:00 in the morning. So
alrighty,
it's not much sleep for me tonight.
Well, I hope this was worth it for you on some level.
Oh, absolutely was. I'll be back on Tuesday night, the same time. I've not decided what film yet. Lord, get back to me about Hellfest, because I really want you on board for the whole.
Yeah, I have my schedule for the next 4 weeks, so we should figure that out.
Yeah, okay.
I'll let you get to sleep tonight, though, first.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, cheers, Lorne, and cheers, Griffin. Hopefully see you on Tuesday. I will see you later. And thanks, everyone,